All right. What's up, Joey? What's up, Joe Boo? How y'all doing?
What's up, John? How's it going, brother?
Oh, man, pretty good. So, exciting things happening. This will be the first aired podcast. And
That's awesome.
I couldn't think of two guys that would be better fit to hang out with, to talk with. The OG podcasters that I know not OG as far as in the world, but y'all are the ones taking it to the next level. I know that.
We appreciate that, man. We really do.
Of course.
We're glad to be here.
Awesome. So, man, what's been going on? Yeah, there's a lot been going on in the world.
Oh,
We'll get thoughts on that for sure. There's no doubt about it. But anything personally that's going on with y'all's podcast that is breaking news that we need to share here? Anything?
We have a couple things.
Well, we got a couple of things. I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, so we've kind of tried to facelift the website just a little bit. We really fell off using it.
I need to know how that works too, by the way.
We got you.
Is that? Go ahead.
Well, shout out to S'mores.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be your best answer. I got to tell you, managing a website is a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
But we
this
kind
is
of
Rachel Doty.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was doing y'all stuff.
No. I'm saying I would suggest.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm giving a little shout out to S'mores Multimedia. There, apology, Rachel, if I got the back half of the name wrong, but I'm saying their website's pretty sharp, and the stuff she's doing is amazing. And we might be looking into consulting with her at some point. I've been doing it. Me and Josh have, and it can be challenging on WordPress, but so we kind of fell off with all the social media stuff we were expanding into. So now we're bringing it back. Yeah. Posting different content on there and everything, but there we're trying to also showcase kind of a lot of the different brands we've worked with.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Gingrich Group.
The Gingrich Group.
Right.
There you go.
The kids said, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I'm going to John's." And they're like, "Oh, John Gingrich." I was like, "No, it's John Jacobus of the Gingrich Group."
Oh, man, yeah.
Gingrich.
Might as well be.
but
I
yes.
thought about calling this podcast John Gingrich.
I like it,
but I mean, I don't know. I got to get
Gingrich Show.
The Gingrich Show.
There you go.
It's so nice.
I got to get Jacobus in there somehow. I have to get people to learn how to pronounce my last name.
That's fair.
Well, you could be like Joe Rogan, the John Jacobus podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't sell it, I don't know what would.
I mean, I like your thinking. I like your thinking a lot, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
But anyway, so we're trying to show a little bit of some of the stuff we've done. COVID has been a really great, unique experience. We've tried to do some advertising, some promotion, helping some friends of ours trying to do their own little side hustle with some logos and stuff. But as a result of all this, we kind of got into producing events.
Okay.
So outside of, when I say we, I mean Joe Boo, I got the honor to do some creative imaging and some promote a little bit of things, but Josh has really been the brain trust of that. So I got to produce a senior event for all of GISD.
No joke.
Yeah, it was a live broadcast, and you want to talk about something?
Yeah, okay. So, the one of my assistant principals came to me and said, "Hey, I hear you do some producing and you have a podcast and stuff, and we're trying to do this party in place that I guess a church had done for their youth group or something."
Tell me what that is. Maybe I should know what a party in place is, but I don't.
Okay, so I didn't specifically know what it was until he explained it to me. So he got a DJ, and a couple guys were emceeing, and I was on the backside showing the different screens and stuff.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're just trying to play some music. They're trying to get the viewership hyped up, ultimately. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to have a very interactive live stream because they can't go anywhere to have a party. Yeah. So they're trying to party.
So this is like
where
a prom?
they're at.
This is their prom?
That's what a lot of the kids were commenting, and I was trying to keep those comments off the stream, but there were
Is it bad that that's the first thing I thought of?
Well,
too?
there were 300 plus watching the live stream, and at any given time, and so any comments, I was trying to select a comment. Well, sometimes I'd select one, and it would refresh automatically, and I would select the wrong one. Sometimes, and so I was trying to monitor that. But anyways, so he came to me and said, "Hey, I know you could do this. Is it possible?" And I said, "Well, it might take a little working around, but yeah, we can do it." And so Joe had invested or spent a little money in StreamYard, and which is a very good platform if you want to have people from some distance communicate with you. And so Zoom, Google Meets.
It's the same type thing?
Same basic type thing.
Except private.
It's private, and there's a link to join it. So you have to have a camera and audio device
Zoom
of some
so
kind.
far, right?
It's built for their servers to do the heavy lifting, and so you can have up to 8 people using their tablet or their mobile phone join you.
Oh, okay.
And it does a lot of the producing for you.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you can show comments from multiple live stream platforms.
It's for podcasters that want to have people on that don't want to be confined to their general
Studio
location.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so, anyway, I used that, and then it has the ability to stream to like 6 places at once on their maximum plan. So whatever Joe had paid for, there we could do 2, and so I streamed it on the Rowlett High School YouTube page.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I'm going to get some Average Joe's Media, love here. So I streamed it on ours as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, it went for about an hour and a half, and the DJ just kept going. I found some videos that I used, the screen recording software, the psychedelic type stuff. A lot of times you'll see that whenever a song is put on YouTube, but there's no video.
Right.
So or maybe the words come up in front of it.
Right.
So I found that without any words, and I chopped it up to where it wouldn't do the ads and stuff. I cut all those ads out and pieced them all back together.
Right.
And so now if you watch our stuff, in our background, we have that psychedelic stuff going behind the cameras.
Nice.
And so I was doing that while the DJ was playing. That way it wasn't just a blank screen or guys just fiddling their thumbs or whatever.
Right.
And so anyways, so we did it for about an hour and a half or so, maybe a little bit longer. And we gave away money that was donated gift card wise.
Right.
And every 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, the MCs would get up and say, all right. And they'd do like a wardrobe change throughout the middle of it. And of course, they were at their house, each independently. I was at mine.
Right. That's wild.
It was pretty awesome. So I did that, and then I went and did the senior awards. I went up to the school. We recorded a ton of clips of the principals or teachers or whoever announcing names of winners or scholarships or whatever.
Right.
And then I put together some stuff for the armed forces, some intros for them. I found their YouTube songs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You'd know them if you heard them, but so I did
Each
that.
branch is like anthem.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so I put those together as an intro, and then they sent me some videos that I stitched in.
Awesome.
And so I put all that together. I feel kind of bad because I left off one group of kids getting named.
Ouch.
But there were 70 clips, and I even said to myself right before I hit finish, I was like, I probably missed somebody.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, traditional world, the way we thought 2 months ago,
Yeah.
a lot different. I mean,
way different.
Maybe not in school, right? Because people want the awards day. They want to be there in person.
Yeah.
They want the proms. They want the parties, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I get that. But from a business standpoint, businesses are changed.
Completely.
I saw a guy on CNBC, and I want to get back to y'all, the promotional work that y'all are doing. But I saw a guy on CNBC. He was talking about, he's a real estate guy, heavy invested in commercial real estate. Mm. And so he is pumping that it's not going to be that much different as far as the people occupying the high rises in downtown, the commercial building. It is changing.
There's no going back.
I think that March 2020 changed the world as far as office and commercial real estate.
What they found out was how many of these jobs can actually be done from home.
Yes.
Teaching now can effectively be an option for public school from home.
Okay, so man, I want to go there because
I got some personal insight there too.
Well,
there's things against it. There's negatives, but if a kid signs up for it and prepares for it, that's the difference. At the beginning of this thing, that 2,700 kids at Rowlett High School plus any other school in the nation that's shut down. Those kids did not prepare to do school with mom and dad.
Right.
And watch videos to learn.
Mom and dads weren't prepared.
Nobody was. That was in public school. Now, people that go sign up for K-12 and all that stuff, they get the Wi-Fi strength or whatever that they need. They get the computers or the tablets and stuff that they need. They prepare for their child to do all this stuff online.
Okay, but let me ask you this, because you're a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that scare you at all? Because here's my thought, in a way, is let's get the 100 best math teachers in the world and film them on how to do algebra.
Sure.
And then we have exponentially more facilitators that maybe aren't paid quite as much as like they would be in their traditional teaching job. Now, I feel like they would be worth every bit of that, but in a way I could see that being some sort of like cost cutting. Like we can have the best teachers teach each thing and they watch it on a YouTube or some sort of video. And then you have the facilitator to go talk to write in questions or whatever, because now it's online learning and you're getting a better education. Because was in education for a while. I know that there are good teachers and that there are bad teachers.
Sure. Absolutely.
And there's teachers that some fit some students more than others, right? So they can be good for one, bad for another type thing. But if you can have the best 100 teaching it across the board, I mean, that's pretty.
So I would say
it's scary to the educate. That's life. That's how technology has bridged everybody, right? The gap
it's
for
changed
everybody, but it's
so
changed.
Much.
But it's an interesting thought.
Well, so in Texas, I would say that I'm not scared
yet
because Texas has had the strictest educational requirements for students, not just for the school.
Texas has.
Texas.
I did not know that.
Well, I mean, it's with the testing that has to be done in order to graduate. It's just, it has the most requirements on the student, which then in turn creates the requirement on the teacher. So, I've been doing something for the last 11 years. I put a website together. I've done videos for multiple subject levels or subject types. And so I've been doing a whole lot of technology stuff before technology in the public education was even gonna be thought about being used heavily or to this magnitude.
Right.
And so when we went into it, I was like, I'm good.
Right.
And so I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And so it's a little more stressful because you can't always get a hold of the kids who aren't going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids that are, they're now taking advantage of the time they have.
Yeah.
Right? They can all get it done. And like, let's just say you give them a week. They're all going to do it Friday, Saturday night, like the last 2 nights.
Can they cut through like some of just the BS that is like teaching you?
Absolutely.
Are y'all on block schedule?
Yep.
So you've got an hour and a half.
Yep.
I mean, an hour and a half is a long time to fill.
It's true.
It's every other day. I'm sure that you can fill it, right? But that attention span, I can't imagine an hour and a half every class, every day.
No, it's every 15 to 20 minutes has to be something a little different.
Right.
And that's a big chunk.
Right.
Well, I think I got mixed feelings on it. Jordan, having done 2 years now of online school, aside from the twins, and not exactly always the most prudent way he went about it, but I think it's good for a lot of kids. But it's really about eliminating waste, which I'll get to in a second because I think it's parallel to the whole professional work industry. Mm-hmm. But I think the one thing that online school is going to have a hard time replacing, the one thing that I think we've seen a lot of, is what teachers do outside of education about subject matter. Yeah. There's a lot of kids that depend on teachers. I mean, we look at our lives. We've caught up before and talked about it. These different people that worked at the school. Maybe it wasn't a
That's
teacher
another
or a
reason
coach.
why I don't feel scared about the tech stuff is because
counselors, lunch ladies, they've all helped shape who we are. They've impacted our lives. And you've really had some students and these teachers even whose lives – their kids are their kids. You know what I mean? They are their family.
For sure.
I don't think the teacher force is going to be whittled down in any way. Now, could I manage 500 students instead of 100 if I were to do it online as opposed to in class? Absolutely.
That's a lot of work, boy.
The managing of it.
500, that's a lot.
Well, the managing of it just looks different.
Right.
Right. So, and it's simply because who came up on my sheet as completed.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, 500. That's a lot of kids, but I can see that 50 of them didn't do anything.
Right.
And so I can focus just on 50. Well, that's a lot like focusing on the 100 that I have in class.
Right.
Or whatever. So, but the personal aspect, the socioeconomic, or the disadvantaged, or whatever it is, kids that the single parent households, or maybe the really no parent presence type of thing. Those type of kids depend on school, what Joey was saying, and they and school is no longer. And I'll probably get in trouble for saying this if too many people hear it, but school is no longer about the grades.
Right.
School is about the relationships you build, the trying to figure out where a student needs to go from there, right? What they're going to be doing with their life. Trade schools need to be a huge portion of the United States infrastructure of education, and it really hasn't been. It needs to be that way because, listen, we're going to need plumbers, we're going to need electricians, we're going to need
a generation
construction
of people fixing to retire
there's
from these jobs, and we don't have the workforce to replace them.
That's true.
So there's going to be that needs to ramp up dramatically, and the best place to identify that is high school, which the Curtis Colwell Center right across from it is the I forget, it's a school that has trades where some kids can be licensed when they get out of there and when they graduate.
Right.
Which I think is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
They're doing some of that at South now too, aren't they?
Well,
Yeah,
every
I know they
school
have, like,
has
a mechanic.
Every single
I think they
school
have, like,
has a
shop
thing.
or whatnot.
Every school.
Naaman has construction.
Right. South has cosmetology, and I think they got some automotive stuff.
Yep.
Lakeview's got some automotive stuff. Rowlett has gone into gaming, and it has a tie to college credit and stuff like that.
I think Saxe, when Jordan was a freshman there, I think they were starting some gaming stuff.
Yeah, they may have too.
It's the next wave. Like gaming is
just
huge.
Electronic, technologically advanced, individually specific skills.
Yeah.
So, if you've ever watched the movie Ready Player One,
I haven't.
Well, that's a good movie.
Is it?
Well, I'm not going to go out and say it's a cinematic masterpiece, but what I am going to say is it will show you a very real potential depiction of what this world is coming to. Everything can be done through the game. You can order pizza through the game, and a drone will deliver it to you.
There's no doubt.
I mean,
that's happening.
All your money is in there, and you can play games and earn money.
Right.
Just because you reached a certain level, you've got some credits or whatever.
I think I would like that movie
that
because
could be pretty slick.
Well, I
It's
mean,
based
I'll
on
talk
a pretty
about the
good
movie,
book
but-
I've heard too.
Yeah.
That's where I've heard some good reviews.
But there's
from
so
it.
many things that this technological stuff could be going in that direction.
Yeah.
Well, Fortnite is a game we started playing because of our kids and some of his students, and there's been two. There was two. Was it last year? There's a DJ Marshmello. I think his name was Marshmello.
Yeah.
He's got the big marshmallow head.
Yeah. And so he was going to do this live concert event in the game, and so we did it with my boys, and it was a really cool experience. And then here recently, during COVID, I thought it was fun.
No, it was good.
It was fun. It was fun. I'm not saying it was mind blowing, but it was something I've never experienced before.
It's true.
Something that interactive on that, because I know a lot of people our age.
Well, it really wasn't that interactive, in my opinion. Because the only thing that was happening was music coming through our headphones.
That's fair. But
and our avatars could jump around a little bit.
But you were experiencing some live event
through gaming
with
true.
people across the globe,
That's
basically.
That's
and
true.
I didn't do a lot of online gaming as that was coming up, just because I was starting a family.
Yeah.
You know,
But
so
coming up, online gaming didn't exist.
Right.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, when we were, my younger siblings, I'm the oldest of seven.
It did.
So,
Doom was. Did you ever play that game?
Okay, I'm sorry. When we were coming up, online gaming was
well, no, I mean,
very
young adulthood.
rare.
So, like, when a lot of our people our age were in college,
Okay.
you started seeing more like Call of Duty and stuff like
That's
that.
true.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like my
true.
younger
Yeah.
siblings, that's the age they kind of came up in, and this was kind of new to me. I never really did it. But Travis Scott did something here recently, and then now because of that success, they've actually created a game mode called, like, I forget what it's called, but the idea behind it is they're going to have different movie premiere, like clip premieres and different concerts and people coming in, and it's a place for friends to go just hang out in this little island thing. I'm not saying I enjoy it,
in
but
this
I'm just
movie,
saying
there's this thing called the Oasis.
Yeah.
And the Oasis is the location of all games, all places all marketplace. You can get married.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Is this something that has it passed us by, or can we still like?
Oh, I think you can get in. I think you can
Because I don't know hardly anything that y'all are talking about.
Well,
I mean, and what I mean by that is I don't know if I care either. That's the thing, right? Like
that may be how it's passes by.
Right. So I feel like if I was 21, 22-year-old John, I would be all about it.
Yeah.
Right. But right now I'm like, man,
Well,
the fact that we're using video cameras right now is awesome to me, but that's about as far as I need to
I don't
go.
really
fair.
enjoy
That's fair.
playing video games as much. I tried doing the PlayStation Pass, and I thought like my thumbs were going to fall off.
Joey, y'all were playing video games last night when I called.
No, hold on.
hold on.
Let me. I'm going to.
No. He's right. He is absolutely.
No, I'm
correct.
agreeing with you. I'm just saying.
You enjoyed it.
But like playing Mortal Kombat and stuff, I was like, whatever. What I'm saying is I don't enjoy playing the traditional video games. I enjoy playing just one game.
Yeah, right.
Because it's
got a social aspect to it.
Yeah, it's a subculture that the kids are into. So we want, our parents knew what we were doing. We were hanging out at the house, and they were okay. You guys are into wrestling. We're having a wrestling pay-per-view party, or pool party, sports and stuff.
Yeah.
But with this whole subculture, I think we both thought as dads it was important to know it,
to jump in. Yeah.
Well, actually, so whenever I was a teenager, preteen, I loved playing Nintendo, Sega. I never got into PlayStation. I never got into Xbox until I got a PlayStation to play Fortnite. But I never got into the newer games because there were so many buttons.
Right.
I'm sitting back thinking, okay, Sega had an A, B, and C, and then the
top
the
button, right?
Cross, for directional, but didn't have the toggle
I thought
switches.
It had the top button too, right?
It might have had a top button or two. Okay,
Maybe it didn't.
Maybe. I know the Super Nintendo did.
Right.
And then as far as I got was to the Nintendo 64, and that's where the toggles came in, and I was like, nope, I'm out.
This is too much.
There was a game or two I like to play on Nintendo 64, maybe.
Right.
And
when did Nintendo
like
64
Mario
come
Kart.
out? Like how old were we?
I remember
14, 13.
It was I remember seeing GoldenEye for the first time. I think we were at Scott Collins' house before a football game. We used to
Shout out Scott Collins.
Shout out Scott Collins.
Oh, hey, you put them first-person shooter games out in front of me. It looks like it's Arabic, and I'm trying to read it.
Yeah, but I think that's the first time I remember the
can't.
first-person shooter was. I think it was either freshman year. A lot of us would go to Ventoni's, and then we walked over to hang out before the game.
Tony's was awesome.
When we were that or Benny's.
Speaking of Ventoni's, if you want to get the same Ventoni's experience, Labella, right up the road, is owned by brother of Vettoni.
Really?
Same guy we used to see shoveling pizza to us for $2 a slice or whatever it was, working there.
Same
with his
garlic
brother.
knots? Those same garlic
Wait, so
knots?
Labella
or
on
different?
66?
Same all that. No, Labella on Broadway, right by the high school. I mean, it's right past Windjoyce.
Yes.
They're brother
I've
to
been there
the
before.
Ventoni's.
Oh, no. I have been there one time, too. It's not the same.
It's the same pizza.
Ventoni's, maybe it's the atmosphere at Ventoni's.
So what's
way better.
What's the thing you remembered about Ventoni's? What's about their
garlic
pizza?
knots. Oh, the pizza? Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay, so their pizza was always like a cheese pizza that had already been made.
Yeah.
And then whenever you wanted pepperoni, they threw some pepperonis and then sprinkled some extra cheese on it and sent it back through the oven. That's what this pizza is.
I love a twice baked pizza, like a Sbarro that they throw that thing back in the oven, crisp it up a little bit. I'm all
it was
about
just
that.
It's the same pizza, man.
The guy,
I'm telling you,
I like
same.
the fact that it was an establishment over there where they treated like us kids. It's not just kids, you know what I mean? Like they were good. They were good to us.
Ventoni's?
Yeah, man. Like
you're
$3
right.
before a game, you get a bowl of spaghetti, a piece of pizza, and a drink, and they put up with us. Like I remember,
Dude, it was the place where you could get the pizza they didn't sell the day before.
Yeah,
and we were buying it from them, but it was delicious to us.
But did y'all like Benny's too? I think that was big freshman year.
I don't
It was like
recall.
a diner. It was like the Max from Saved by the Bell.
Oh, man.
But it
I
was.
don't remember Benny's specifically.
I remember going there a couple of times with a group of us that did driver's ed there. But speaking of businesses over there, how often did y'all go to the pool hall? I remember selling that man an ad for the school newspaper.
You're talking about it was in the corner right
yeah,
there.
Slicks.
Oh yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
go.
dude.
I didn't
Oh,
go there.
man.
I stayed away from that. You guys know how. I mean, that type of scene and stuff where there was alcohol and cigarettes and stuff. Like I never.
should have.
I never went
Cigarettes
around it.
was
It was atrocious.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you walk in there and you stay 1 minute, and
But
your
they had-
parents are asking you, "Where
have
did
you
you
been?"
go?
That's right.
Where did you
That's-
go?"
Same
yeah,
way with
well-
the bowling alleys.
Yeah, that's true.
That was tough. It's not like that anymore though.
Less noticeable if your parents smoked. So
But see, that is fair.
yeah, but yeah, no, they did put coupons in the school newspaper. We did like a half-page ad.
Yeah, right.
We go over there, man. It was
Slicks Billiards. You're right.
and but we went to the one night. Shout out to Terry Barker. We went to the same guy, this Asian gentleman who owned it. He owned one off of Ferguson, and we should not have gone to that one.
Right.
It looked like something out of Fast and Furious. We saw this group of kids, and he was yelling and cursing at this dude. He had one of those like Civics with all the
Rice burners.
Yeah, man, everything.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Had all the ground effects, the body work, and the
Right.
spoiler. And he revved it, and this was like a gravel parking lot. And the guy was like, you're not going to do nothing to me and stuff. And so he just floored it, hit the kid. The kid flies up in the air doing just
Ouch.
flips,
Yikes.
lands on top of the car, hooks his arm in through the sunroof, starts wailing on the guy. And we're freaked out by this. And then next thing you know, the pool hall empties. Because everybody's getting in their cars, and it literally looked like something out of Fast and Furious. Everybody's like, me, all their cars, they were going to go, I guess, kill the guy or whatever. So we're looking at each other like, should we leave? But then we're like, wait a second, it's probably safer now.
Right.
Because everybody left.
Everybody's gone. Yeah.
But shout out to pool halls.
Man, I just want to recognize how easy it was to get him off of whatever he was talking about earlier when I said something about Batonis.
I love
you love nostalgia.
storytelling.
Well,
I
but
love
here's the
nostalgia.
thing,
Yeah.
I'll say this. I don't even remember what we were talking
I don't
about
either.
before because the Tony's.
Well, we were
did
talking
start-
about video games
Oh, that's right.
and that whole atmosphere
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Let's talk COVID, like real
okay.
COVID.
Sure.
Like, I have a question as far as like whenever I'm talking to people about it, was it real? Was COVID real? Or did
Okay, so
If you're
real
bored.
real is subjective.
Well, what I
Okay.
mean was like, was it
Is it a real
was it
virus?
of course, it's a real virus.
Okay.
Was it the flu and we overreacted? Or
Not even.
Or was it like? Did
Well,
we need to take the precautions that we took?
I think it's a. I think
No.
you want to go first. Or you want me to go first?
Okay, it was not the flu. It was not even close to the flu. It may have been comparative to the flu in terms of the symptoms and everything, but it was not the flu. Nor is it still. It's
It's
an overblown way to shut the economy down, in my opinion, and get Trump out of office. That's what I think that it is.
Going that deep.
That's what I think that it is.
Okay.
So I'm going to balance it out because we've done a series of diving deep into conspiracy theories and whatnot. And
I want to get to y'all's Facebook. Censored
The fact checking.
fact checking.
Yeah, we have our own Average Joe's Media fact checker. Challenge coins coming.
Yeah.
But
Is that what those are?
Yeah.
Those are coins?
no, I'm calling them coins. They're
Oh.
they're acrylic, man.
Okay.
We're gonna. It was. I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. I did.
Man, that would have been way cooler if they were
Side
coins.
note, spoiler alert, that same week, last week, in my late night random spending, I also bought us a set of these pocket staffs. It's about yay big, and you flip this little thing, and it goes whoosh, and this big full-size staff.
Okay.
You're going to love it. It's going to be
Okay.
great. We randomly buy stupid stuff like didgeridoos
Sure.
and flags.
I bought a commemorative Trump gold-plated like $50.
Okay.
I bought
we
that
also
last
found
night.
Trumpisher stickers. So it's the Punisher sticker, but with Trump's hair.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But anywho, back
We
to
digress
we
just a little
digress.
bit.
We digress. But no, so here's the thing. My problem with COVID. I do believe that something did occur, and I believe it was with ill intent. I don't think it was naturally occurring in the environment. I think that it was used. I don't know by who, but I think it was used to try to hurt our country, hurt other countries, hurt the economy, the whole 9 yards. So what I think frustrates me the most is we had a lot of people that had good intentions, a lot of people that were falling directions. You know, like, hey, our country thought this was a World War II moment. They were ready to rise to the occasion. They did a lot of great things. They really did. But my biggest question in this was,
we banded together.
Sure.
No, we a lot of people
We
did.
banded together and stayed away from each other.
But you get what I mean. Like, we were all doing the same thing.
But it's easy. My problem with it is that I've known some people through work and through friends and family, talked to some people and listened to some stories, and people did sacrifice more than probably any other generations had to, from the standpoint of time. Time is something that we can't get back. We can't buy. It's just the amount of terror.
What do you mean? What do you mean by time? Because
time away from people. You've had
grandparents were drastically impacted by this with their grandkids.
Yeah.
You know,
kids, families apart from parents because of their line of work, because of if the kid had an illness.
2 household families.
Well, sure.
There was a lot of that stuff.
We didn't have any tragedy happen, but there were a lot of people that lost people during this time.
Anybody at the hospital?
Yeah,
no visitors.
Yeah, no visitors. You couldn't go see your parents in the last,
No, you were doing Skype calls.
Skype
calls for that, and you couldn't bury folks either.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's a sacrifice that was pretty big. So it's really real for people, and the fear that people have been under as a result of this is real. The jobs that were lost was real. Yeah. So I think there's been real consequences to this. I don't know how much of it was COVID related, necessary versus what the powers that be inflicted on people. But this, our way of life, our economy, a lot of people's lives are going to be forever changed.
Yeah.
Because of what happened. So that's I think the careful thing when you were talking about, is it real or not? It's fine. You got to keep the
real
clarity.
is a matter of perspective.
You know, the threat of the disease versus the impact.
Absolutely. And that's what I was referring to was the actual illness something that we should have reacted this way?
The reaction was overblown, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just from the standpoint of, if you look at the numbers, just to the traditional flu.
Isn't it also interesting how, and we'll get to the George Floyd topic here in a second, but how, like, now, rightfully so, it's the main story, George Floyd, but
sure,
like, COVID has almost like gone away.
It nearly disappeared, and it's because, in my opinion, it's because of how overblown it was originally.
That's what I'm getting at.
To me, COVID was a distraction. That distraction was no longer distracting, and they needed a new distraction.
Yeah.
The George Floyd situation was atrocious, right? The video, the how everybody
act.
Right. It was handled 100% wrong. It was handled wrong on multiple facets.
Because I don't know what you mean.
So like, the cop.
Okay, yes.
Right,
So
and then the three cops around him.
That was handled wrong. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there was all kinds of people filming it. Right. Which, in that regard, it's also 20 years ago. This wasn't filmed.
Right.
Right. It was still an issue.
Right.
But it wasn't widespread into the mainstream media.
Right.
So the cop stayed on him too long. He was already detained or handcuffed. He should have stood up, right, or put him in the car or whatever. If he was doing something wrong, he should have been put in the police car.
Yeah. The arrogance of that,
right?
Too, just to have his hand in his pocket and
dude, there was all kinds of stuff that
is
he was
soulless.
Had he really been doing something wrong, if he was properly detained with the handcuffs and stuff, okay. If he needs to kneel on him for a second because he's struggling, fighting, okay. But how long did that video go on?
9 minutes.
Right. So the three cops that were there, those are the guys that could have had an influence on him, and they didn't.
Right.
Right. The people around were obviously shouting some stuff to try to get him off, but he wasn't listening to them because I guess they're not on the same level as the police. Whatever.
Right.
And so he's like, I don't got to listen to you, but maybe he should have listened to the three guys hanging around.
Right.
There's all kinds of stuff that said the coroner's report said that he didn't die of asphyxiation. Was that
he didn't take care of himself?
Was that to cover up the police, or was that because
I didn't know that?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so he came out saying there was no evidence of him dying by strangulation or asphyxiation, and it was all pre-existing things that caused him to lose his life. Well, was the fact that he was maybe at one point in time restricted from breathing fully, could that have had an impact? Absolutely.
Well, yeah,
I think that's why I went to the third-degree murder, is because these two guys weren't trying to murder him, but that was the end result, right? And they handled it inappropriately, so therefore there was foul play, and charges in some regard had to be filed. They still are pending, or they whatever. The process is going on with that now, as well it should be. But and of course George Floyd's not the only situation where this has happened. Mm-hmm. But you have the outcry from the other side of the argument, where the white cops are shooting white people, black cops are shooting white people, Hispanic cop is shooting a white person, Hispanic cop is shooting Hispanic cop shooting a black. There are statistics to get every argument discussed. There are statistics to back any stance you have, right? And I'm sure there's evidence to back that as well. So the situation being what it is now, in my opinion, just what whoever the COVID-19 distractor, where that originated from, is just what we needed, because COVID is no longer a distraction.
Right.
In order for us to maintain an immune system that functions, we need to be around things that could potentially affect our immune system.
So is COVID over? Like, are you like?
No.
Obviously, there's going to be
COVID's over, like the measles is over. People still get the measles.
That's why, yeah. Or is it like the flu, where we're gonna have a flu season, we're gonna have a COVID season, whatever.
They'll try to bring it back. People are gonna have to err on the side of caution, but I think
it'll be COVID 20 when it comes back.
But
they've already had COVID 1 through 18.
But what I want to add to that, and this is again my perspective on this, is that COVID was a great equalizer. Because there's a couple different things that I think happened in COVID. COVID exposed how our society has eroded basic human rights and privileges. You know what I mean? Just our way of life. We've seen families across the country now realizing how much time they lost from their kids. We've seen how many families are dependent on their kids caring for kids because of work struggles. We've really just seen all the different pressure points. The other thing with COVID is during this, you've had governments across the country take away civil liberties, infringe on civil liberties. You've seen a whole nother group of individuals who have now felt what oppression by the government or oppression by a legal body has been like, and there's been outrage. I mean, you had, Michigan, militia stormed the Capitol and whatnot. Right. And so what I think is making this movement so powerful right now is, I think, a lot more of individuals who have not experienced the same systematic prejudice, throughout generations of their families. I'm not saying this has been the same. I'm saying people have gotten a taste.
Right.
Yeah.
Things have slowed down to where people are more able to see. People are seeing all these other bad things happen, and now they're more aware. They're more willing to accept. There's not as many rainbows and unicorns.
There's none.
But the thing with the thing that happened in Wisconsin, in
Minnesota. Minneapolis,
Minnesota. Well, my job has business there, and they're a long story. But anywho, I get them confused all the time. They weren't able to suppress it because what happened in Georgia was suppressed, for 2 months. Yep. There's a lot now being said about it, but not a lot of people were talking about what happened in Kentucky, where a first line responder, an EMT or a paramedic, a nurse person. She worked in healthcare. I apologize. I'm butchering this. She shot in her home because a no-knock warrant was issued to the wrong address, and her husband defended, and he's facing charges for attempted murder of a police officer because he was defending his own home.
Right. I can't remember her name, but they thought that she had drugs, or that she had drugs in the house. Right. That's the one.
Yeah, but a no-knock search warrant
right, I know.
In the middle of the night, and so we're blessed.
We know here in Texas, no-knock search warrant, unless you are clearly identifying who you are immediately.
That's the part.
We're risking that.
That was allowed to happen, and so.
By the way, I haven't heard that. Story. This is news to me.
Yes, no-knock search warrant to the wrong address. It was a mistake. The actual drug dealer that they were trying to get more evidence and stuff on was already in custody. And so nothing was said, nothing was done. This was suppressed since February. And so this tragedy that happened to George, it caused they couldn't contain it anymore. And so now people are having to start looking at it, and the media is still spinning it, and there's still a lot of creating a lot of divisiveness. The powers that have been trying to hurt us are still trying to do it with some of the rioting and the looting and the bricks popping up everywhere. But the fact of the matter is, and we have a lot of friends that are cops if they're listening, we love them, and I'm not saying this about them, but overall in our country in different places, we have abuse of power.
Yeah,
we have abuse of power not just in our police officers and our state troopers and stuff. We have abuse of power in the legal system. You have people that are not really given due process. They're sitting in county jails because they can't afford bail over a petty crime, a nonviolent crime. They might sit for months.
But in terms of abuse of power, a microcosm of that, whenever we're at the house podcasting, I have a little power over the control of all that. It's easy for me to abuse, to shut his mic off every now and then, if I disagree with him or whatever. That's so minor. That's such a microcosm. Imagine if you have a gun that you have on your side that you can wield at anything that is suspicious, right? And you are, I'm going to put air quotes in, justified in doing that. How many times have you heard of somebody getting shot because the police officer yelled gun? Just because the guy was reaching for his wallet, his identification, right? I mean, was he justified in it? Well, he said gun, so he followed whatever protocols, right, he was ingrained with, but was there actually a gun? All that type of stuff. There's all kinds of stories like that. And matter of fact, I saw one on a video that my second cousin, she posted, and it looked like he was dead in the car, and the police officer told him not to reach or something, not to look suspicious or whatever, and he shouted gun and shot the guy. And I think he had been shot. I don't think it showed the shooting, but the person was not responsive in the passenger side seat, and the gun was being pointed by the cop outside of the car, and the lady was like, he was reaching for his insurance or his identification, which you told him to do. And he was like, but I told him not to put his hands in his pockets. Or, like, I mean, come on. Like, there's so many of those type of things where it's up to the discretion of someone in power. Well, if someone in power isn't someone who's good or someone who makes the decision to be kind rather than right, then you see that abuse.
Is this a few bad apples thing, like people like to say? Because I know that's caught a lot of heat lately.
I would say yes.
While I think it's true, I think it's. I don't think that it's okay to say that right now. I think that gets a little bit of pushback. I mean, I think it's fine to say it, but I think you're going to get pushback on that if you say, "Hey, it's just a few bad apples." Because
what's a few in terms of a million police officers?
Well, but what I'm saying is, there are certain jobs, and Chris Rock, I believe, said this perfectly in his comedy sketch. But there's certain jobs that you can't have a few bad apples in, and being a police officer is one of them.
Yeah, you got to be vetted pretty good, I think.
I think so too, but
or at least maybe now it's being exposed that's the process. A vetting process has got to go.
But that makes it pretty tough from just a logistics standpoint, a hiring standpoint, a number of people standpoint. But where I was going with that was, if you have a few bad apples there, then the same could be said, and I don't think it's being said much, where with the rioting and all of that stuff, maybe those are not all not all protests are violent, or not all protesters are being violent.
Right.
Those violent ones are the few bad apples of this, or it goes deeper in the Antifa stuff, and if you want to go there,
the bricks that were just conveniently located at where they were going to protest.
So I think the thing that was eye opening to again perception, things that are ingrained in us, right? So when we were doing some research for a podcast, there's this video I was telling Josh about. Man, it just really got all over me. There's a bunch of people, some people, parents, children, handicapped people, preachers, all these type of people that were protesting some of the stuff going on in California because they were removing people from homes, and just some people felt like, again, civil liberties are being infringed on. Then they're outside of their governor's mansion or whatever in Sacramento. So you had state troopers in full riot gear, like militarized police. Basically, a preacher got shoved down. They were moving towards all these people, and it got all over me.
Was he the 75-year-old guy that?
No, we can get to that though. That's something that's new. That's huge. There's some breaking news on that we should talk about. But
gotcha.
There's a former Marine who was a doctor who came there. He got on a bullhorn and he started talking to these folks, these state troopers, and saying, "Listen, you're following bad directives. You're allowed to turn those down. Just call in sick, do something. Don't do this." And he pleaded to them. Finally got hundreds of them to turn away and walk back. But here's the thing: when you see protest in the streets of America for other reasons, and you see that riot gear, are you all? You know what I mean? Like, you got to keep things in perspective. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you can't say. I love saying that.
I know you do. But it's not always applicable.
You can't say, but no. I mean,
just because somebody's in riot gear doesn't mean automatically you get defensive and then start to fight back just because they're in riot gear.
But the point is like, just because you're people who are protesting something that you might not share that experience, you might not understand it, it might not be your shared perspective. It doesn't take away from their right to do so. It doesn't take away from the right or the fact that a militarized police force being used on its own citizens in its own community is pretty scary. I think there's reasons for some of it. Obviously, when things get violent, again, I'm not being critical of the officers as much as I'm saying we need to look at the system, how officers are trained. You know, what are the protocols putting in place? What is that infrastructure that is embedded in those organizations? Same thing with like the judicial system. Why are we not prosecuting these people? Why are we picking and choosing? Oh, we think we can get an easy conviction on this, the DA says, so we're going to hammer these folks. But, I don't think I can get conviction on that. I want to get reelected.
Right.
So I'm not going to prosecute these cases. You know, you got career politicians that don't have term limits. There's no reform to look at what they're getting for campaign finance.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of people that are making decisions that don't care about us. They don't.
Right.
And they like to use different populations of the country to twist and to be, you know what I mean, make it their platform and this, that, and the other. So hopefully more Americans are seeing we really are in this together. And so I think those are some big issues. But I just want to be clear. The race issue is also an issue. It's not an either or. You know, unfortunately, we are programmed to like to see things black and white, either or.
Right.
But it's not that simple. Life isn't that simple.
I saw what's the what are the circles where they intersect?
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. I saw one that said you can be angry at the police officer.
Yeah.
You can support Black Lives Matter or the black community.
Sure.
And then you can also hate the rioting, right?
Yeah.
And in the center is like you can do all those. So it's not mutually exclusive is what you're saying, right? Like it's gray, right? Like nobody wants to see, not nobody, most people don't want to see the businesses burn down. But 99.9%, nobody wants to see George Floyd be murdered.
Right.
And so like, it's not black and white. It is all gray. Right. And so, but it's just, it's a tough thing to get everybody on the same page and everybody together because everybody has their own thoughts and processes on how things should be said or look. And because not everybody is on the same page in general. Not all of the black communities on the same page, not all the white communities on the same page.
Right.
So it's difficult to know how to navigate any of this when not everybody's on the same page.
Well, so something about everybody not being on the same page. Trump tweeted something that's gotten, in my opinion, way overblown. Which, of course, anytime the president tweets something, or says something, one side's gonna completely slander the other side.
Of course.
Okay.
Which is nauseating.
Oh,
it's nauseating. I don't care if you watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC.
Scroll down your Facebook feed, whatever.
Gosh,
it's ridiculous.
The same thing can happen, and
it's black and
great
white
for
in terms
one,
of stories.
and then
I mean,
like the worst thing. Terrible.
One, it was like great, and one, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Well, he said when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Yeah, right.
And so the black community has taken that to mean he's a racist, that we're going to shoot the protesters of Black Lives Matter, and or that the government is going to shoot them. And to me, that the simplest explanation of that is the store owner that was getting looted goes out and charges with a machete and then gets like pummeled to death. Well, he's protecting his property.
But wouldn't you say, and I'm not playing devil's advocate here, I really think this.
Sure. Okay.
That is, like, you can say that so much.
There's so
better.
many different ways that you can
So
say
many
it.
different ways.
But
You don't
my point
have
is
to
that
say it
listen,
like
if
that.
if you came and looted my business and I like saw it coming, you like I would get defensive of my property.
There's no doubt.
In such a way that if you're gonna have an act of violent aggression against me, I'm justified in violently aggressing towards you as well.
And I agree with that completely.
And so
it was a slogan used in some of by a official in the South during the beginning of desegregation, and with some of the atrocities that happened then. So a lot of people's criticism of that is whether he was aware of it, or maybe he just has never learned about these different civil rights movement and these type of things.
It's a catchy thing in terms of rhyming and like that may have just been something when the looting starts, and he's thinking of what's going to happen on the opposite side of the looting. And shooting sounded good. Very well, he may not have been educated about it, but
I think that's giving him too much credit.
He may have also been educated about it.
This is also why again, it's a double-edged sword.
But nobody's on the same page, so that's why half of people are taking it so personally, and other half are like, "Well, he's right."
Yeah.
Well, come on.
Let me pose this question to you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, no, I'm sorry. This is fun. I really enjoy this, by the way. So thank you for this open forum. But I was doing some research. I didn't. There's a new thing we're starting, and I didn't want to post last week just because everything going on. I didn't really feel like I had anything that I felt comfortable with adding to the conversation that would add value. And so instead, I shared a video by Martin Luther King, a speech he did called "The Other America," and so I definitely suggest anybody going to YouTube, watching, listening, that it's reading it. It's pretty incredible. But something that really opened my eyes to hear it in a certain way was how different things trickle down and can generationally affect people, right? And so, in looking at different things in our life, like we've tried to rise above, like do better than the previous generation.
Right.
But if you look at a community, say, oh man, like Katrina, that's going to set back this community forever. They talk about some of the areas in LA from the 90s riots, they never rebuilt. People are concerned about some of the socioeconomical impact from COVID, and also from some of the areas where the rioting and looting started the hardest.
Bad, yeah.
Right.
And so this starts a domino effect, and it could affect generations of a family. And so I think part of what people have maybe lost sight of, or they haven't really realized is that when you talk about some of is there systematic racism? I think when we hear racism,
Systemic.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, it wouldn't be a podcast without me butchering the word.
I thought it was. I'm sure I've said.
That's why Average Joe's Media. We heard it both ways.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy to when we think of it, we think of like, well, we don't want to say anything offensive and be called a racist, or it's racist. I think we were taught to love everybody the same way, like our families did, right? And so you're a racist if you think someone's different than you, or you treat somebody different. Well, racism is more complicated than that.
Right.
And racism is way more complicated. And right now, that word's being thrown around as if it's nothing. It's the default.
Racist?
Yeah, racism or racist. Mm-hmm. It's the default response to somebody whenever you have a conflict with somebody, or you have a differing of opinion with people of a different race. And right now, it's being magnified. I'm just saying.
But you hear with the kids. If someone says you don't like, I don't like water, you're like, you're being racist to that country who made that water. It's like, I'm like, no, you're not being racist.
It's being thrown around way too easily. And so now you have the people who aren't racist but are catching flack from having a difference of opinion. They're saying, if everything's racist, then nothing's racist. Right. And so you're now having that type of an argument where if you're going to throw around the word so easily, then the word loses its meaning completely, or the idea is non-existent because you're just throwing the thing around so easily. Well, it's way more complicated than that.
Well, I think one of the unique things that I've been so encouraged by and really inspired by, often I've taken a stance out of ignorance. Of times being I don't understand, why there's so much emphasis on different races or different colors, in the time in which we live, and should it not be? It shouldn't be that big of a deal anymore, and and not understanding different organizations that took the stance of fighting for those rights, because I didn't quite understand how bad it still was, so to speak, and I always viewed a lot of the stuff from there really being more divisive than positive, and so there's a lot of effort being made by a lot of these organizations to really provide education, like what we're talking about right now. Like, racism isn't just these two things. You're not necessarily racist if you're doing that, but the bigger problem is the lack of people engaging in the uncomfortable conversation, and the judgment that's placed on people for making a mistake that's caused us inherently to not even want to try because we're too scared to, and really looking to build a coalition. And so, some of the stuff that Dr. King said in that speech talked about this, like the generational setbacks.
I really do hope that changes from a standpoint of not putting yourself out there because you're afraid of making a mistake. I know I do it all the time.
All the time.
I haven't responded.
We probably have today half a dozen. So.
Sure. I haven't responded on social media much about this because I'm unsure about what to say, because I have some really good friends that are in the Black community, and I don't I don't want to I don't know, say something wrong and then be like, oh man, now I've upset them. But I think that it might change, and the one way I think that it might is with the whole Drew Brees situation and kneeling, and when he talked about Colin Kaepernick kneeling, terrible timing on his part to talk about that.
Terrible timing.
And whether you think that's the right thing or wrong thing for him to say, whatever, that can be a different discussion. But I think that the reaction by some or one or two of his teammates in saying like, hey, I know Drew, and he's got the heart. He misspoke. He spoke, said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
What's his name? Thomas. I think.
Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas, I think, was the one that said he's apologized. He's a man of God. He's a Christian.
Right.
I forgive him because that's what God teaches us to do. Let's stop this distraction. Let's get back on the real topic.
Sports is one of the most ostracizing places if you're going to be a racist. Like, you're going to be outed quick.
Yeah, you can't. That's why I don't think.
You're not going to make it.
I don't think that there's a lot of race. I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there's some in some capacity, but it's not prevalent in my opinion.
I would say, especially football and basketball, where the athletes are predominantly Black or African American. You I don't know. Sure, there's going to be racist in there. There's no doubt about that.
Just look at the law of large numbers.
But I just don't think that. I would imagine, if you're at that level, you're commingled with all different types of races, and there's no way that you can be hitting people, laying on people underneath center if you're truly racist. I just don't. I'm sure that there are, but I would have a hard time thinking
it's
that
too intimate of an atmosphere.
I think that's a great way to say it.
In order for racism to just be really, really prevalent in sports.
I think, though, that it's not racism as much as it could be racial or cultural insensitivity, because I was actually talking about.
I don't doubt that's possible.
Yeah, right.
I was talking to the kids about this because them being teenagers has been a very unique experience. The struggles we have with processing this. Godly, it's insane with them. But we were talking a lot because a couple of years ago, the kids found last year when we were moving, they found a whole box of stuff I had from back when we went to South and stuff, and a lot of rebel flag stuff on it. And so then they were like, "Oh, Dad, you didn't tell us you were a racist." Right. So when I wasn't a racist, I didn't, and so we had that stuff back then, you know what I mean? But my views as I've gotten older and things have changed. And so one of the things I was trying to explain to them was because they brought up the whole thing of flagging, because my brother was telling about how flagging would happen. And so one of the places I've come to in life is we were pretty ignorant. We had a lot of friends that were Black, Hispanic people that that were brothers to us. We loved, you know what I mean? And we weren't racist, you know what I mean? We weren't anything. But if I'm looking back now, if I was of a minority, in our school, I think I would have had questions. That's kind of weird.
Do you think?
You know what I mean? I think there's mixed.
I don't know if we were ignorant or if the issues weren't around us.
That was ignorance.
But I'm saying, even though people,
so to
here's
put
what we
this in
didn't talk
context-
about it.
Here's my point. Like, I
Hold on,
never went
it in
flagging and stuff.
Put it in context,
but-
though. Tell people like what we're talking about, like what flagging was, and
So
like
the
what was
flagging
involved.
before football games.
What flag would you be using?
The rebel
Well-
rebel flag was the school's flag when it was in its inception.
Right.
And in the early, like,
Was that the only flag you had? Did you
There
not
was
have the actual the Libertas flag?
Well,
and-
but
no,
there
it
was
was
like
the only flag that was used. I mean, I had like 4 generations of the fam go.
Okay.
Yeah, so
There was
I
a
mean,
rebel
Like, I don't
flag
remember
with
what the
like.
flag was, but
If I'm remembering correctly, it was like the rebel flag with like the South Garland logo, like an SG
That might
in the
be
middle
right.
of it.
That might be right.
I'm pretty sure that's the one
Yeah,
that I
and then-
saw quite often.
yeah, and the rebel flag was in the Libertas. It was
Yeah.
in the
So let me ask y'all a different question, because yes, we may have had some ignorance in terms of what we were doing and what people saw, but what was the intent of the people flagging?
no, agreed.
1000% agree.
What was the intent?
The school spirit, and
School
there's a
spirit.
lot of people that didn't have a problem with it. Like there
That's
were
where
African American
racism
kids who were the
is.
school mascots who flew the flag back in the day.
That's what racism is. Racism is where the intent is to harm someone of another race.
I agree, but
So
you can
that's-
also, but ignorance is just not knowing, right?
Sure.
But I'm
ignorance-
saying maybe
so
it's
you
cultural insensitivity. So maybe it's again a broader
And
picture of it.
that's probably
But
part of
I
it.
remember
as well.
when, but again, not understanding, our interpretation of the pride for the school, Southern pride itself.
Paul Parker was our mascot.
Yeah, Paul
and,
Parker.
and our flag had it hadn't been taken off yet. The rebel flag hadn't been taken off of the emblems
Libertas. Yeah.
Oh no, that's right.
at
you're
the
right.
time. I mean,
And the endowment.
so was he ignorant of his own people's past that, like, I mean, he was a black guy and he represented the school that still had that. Was he ignorant?
No, what I'm saying
You see
though
what I'm
is
saying?
no, I'm saying is I think we were ignorant to the impact of what it could have meant or what it might have said to people. I'm saying if I was an African American student, I would have been pretty confused with some of the symbolism. Like when
I don't
the
know
mural,
if it was specifically students or if it's the community.
either,
If
well,
it's
I'm
like
just saying,
an African American passerby who's not part of South Garland. A student, I think, has the school spirit, sees the thing around, and it's about, for a student, it's from the perspective of I'm at the school here, and this is the flag, or this is part of the
but
flag, or
the
whatever.
mural in the cafeteria. I remember us coming back senior year and being outraged they had painted over and not even told us about it. But the fact that when we were
He was in journalism, so he probably knows a
I
little
was
more.
into.
yeah, well, I mean, I also
Weren't you also?
yeah, you were part of the cool club,
No,
but
I would- I would have had to read and
I had
stuff.
3 journalism.
well, no, I
classes
mean,
my
I
senior year.
I started. Well, no, I
you
mean,
didn't have a senior year.
I started a
did
pretty
take
big
calculus. I
thing
remember
senior
helping
year
you
when
with
they were going to
calculus.
threaten to take away Dixie, which I still don't. I will never understand why that happened. I don't think that has the same undertones, but I'm just saying. But at one point in
Dixie?
time, yeah,
I
Dixie's
need
no
to do a
longer
little
their fight
research.
squad.
I need to do a little research, but I thought it had racial undertones. No.
Well, I don't. I could be wrong. I could be ignorant to this too. I think if we had those same words, yes, but I think like music notes on a sheet of paper.
Yeah. What is the anthem of like the Confederate Army? Or
It
is
may
that
have
wrong?
been
was just some songs.
The instrumental part may have been.
Yeah.
Maybe not the specific words.
Well, I
of the
think there
song.
was a.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the
again,
choir,
ignorance is
the
is playing a
choir
role
sang
here.
the choir sang this song. Anyways, but I guess what I'm trying to get at though is like during our lifetime, okay, when we were of age, and I believe at least maybe our freshman year, there were slaves at little painting in the mural. There were slaves in the fields of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
plantations.
Yes,
You know what I
there
mean?
were, yeah.
That if we're being real, if we're being honest, it wasn't right. You know what I mean? Like we didn't think anything of it. But I'm saying from a cultural perspective, I would
Are
really
you talking
have
about having that painted on in a school, or the existence of it in history?
I'm not
I would
saying
say
that-
both.
Well, I'm saying
I don't know if you were making
no.
those
I'm saying it's
separate
not. I think we need to do a better job of learning about real history, which
Okay.
I want to ask you about something in a second on that. But yeah. But I'm saying, but like it was, we grew up in an environment that in a bubble where we didn't necessarily we're like, oh, this doesn't mean this doesn't mean that. But it did for a lot of people. And like one of the
fair.
like I've told a story before where I was working in Mervin's senior year. And my school ring, I mean, I'm related to Robert E. Lee. First, I had a family member at South first class they had, so I'm school spirited Joe, So I had the flag in color and enamel on the side of the ring, and also embedded underneath the stone. Man, I was all in. And so I was working one night, and this family comes in, and I would have to say they were rather hickish, way more southern, like Kentucky holler. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Why are you choosing your words carefully now?
But he came in and he started. It was a little weird, He started talking to me a certain way, and then he was just like, brother, and and you know how it is and this stuff. And I was like, I don't even understand what's going on. So then he's like, oh, this is ridiculous. So he calls over my manager and starts saying like, I'm the future and all these other kind of things. And I was like, it's really uncomfortable and weird. And at the end, he gave me his card and he said, here's my card. You should reach out to me. We need more like you, son. And it was a KKK card.
Wow.
And he saw that emblem on my ring and automatically assumed that. And I stopped wearing the ring that day.
Right.
Didn't wear it again because, again, I recognized that just because I didn't mean it doesn't mean.
That's fair. That's a
mean?
That's a biblical concept.
Yeah, just because I didn't intend this to mean this doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that for other people. So my unique perception is not a universal truth for the rest of the world. And so I think that's a big part of what as a society we need to start recognizing is that just because we haven't experienced it, just because we haven't lived through it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
So that's the thing that has to work both ways in order for understanding to be universal.
But don't you feel like the dialogue that's happening right now is a more healthier dialogue that's been taking place in the past?
I would say yes, but that's also a dialogue where both sides are now hearing each other. So if somebody, you take Gio for example on the podcast or the video that he did the other day, he's in a situation now where people are listening to what he has to say. So it's a black couple. Gio's has a black wife, and then there's another black lady on there, and so he sent out the link, I guess, to Facebook, and so we got a hold of it and watched it some, and so this black couple is posing questions to Gio to get a perspective of a white man, and well, they're listening to him, and he's responding to them. Now, Gio's very animated, right? He's very passionate. He knows how to speak, and he understands also if he's being misunderstood. He knows immediately to clarify, and that comes off crystal clear in that video. And so there was also a misunderstanding. I got on there and commented a little bit. Joey called me a troll, whatever. But my statement, I misunderstood a word that was used, and I responded to it, and then it just really quickly got explained that there was just a misunderstanding, and I wasn't saying anything that was like completely contrary to the topic at hand or contradictory. So I was talking and saying, listen, more people need Jesus.
Right.
More people need to have this mentality of how do I want you to treat me is how I should treat you. And so this lady responded, Summer, I think was her name, responded that that's subjective. I heard objective, which I'm like, yes, it is objective. But I responded using the word objective. I responded as if I should have said subjective. Because generally speaking, people don't want to be treated badly. People don't want to have somebody's knee on their neck and potentially choke them out or anything like that. People don't want to be shot for no reason. There is a general standard of good and how people can be treated. And if you are wanting to be treated good, then you should be treating other people good. And now that's on both sides of the argument, right? If you want people to hear, don't scream at them, right? Talk to them, and then they will hear you. If you're yelling, they're not going to hear you. If you want to be heard, you have to hear, right? There's a dichotomy, or there's a necessary both sides of the street argument that has to be had. And so, I mean, there's too many things where if your intent is bad and somebody reads it as bad, okay, well, they're right on. Y'all are on the same page, right? But if your intent is not and somebody reads it as bad, then now you're not on the same page, and there has to be a discussion or in some capacity. So it's just everybody's got to hear. The Black Lives Matter organization or movement or whatever has to hear the side of who they're opposing, and they have to hear if they want to be heard, right? And so,
well, and vice versa,
right? Like absolutely,
we have to hear and listen to Black Lives Matter
if we want to be heard as well. Absolutely. I say we as a horrible choice of words, but whoever this other side is, and for the most part, it's the police force versus the black community is what it seems to be, or the hardcore racists that I know exist but aren't nearly as prevalent now in terms of being open. Yeah. It's that side and the people that they're opposing. There's so many things that have to be heard before anything will ever get done.
Right. There's
the dialogue is absolutely necessary.
There's no
that's going on right now.
Well, the thing with Black Lives Matter, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've fallen into the trap. You know, you hear like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Well, okay, listen, all lives matter, including black too, right? I think a lot of people, you've seen that a lot, when that first started happening, right?
Are you saying that, or are you saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I think I can understand.
Well, he's fallen into that trap of feeling like the phrase Black Lives Matter excludes all the rest.
When it first began, I think it was challenging here locally because you felt outraged by certain things, but then you had that whole police shoot, that terrorist attack, and the police died saving the people that were spitting in their face. You know what I mean? Like, it was challenging. Like, well, because it's easy to have an opinion on something if you don't have the ability to personalize it. So I'm quick to say there's a big problem with policing because I know we have friends that we grew up with that we care about, we love, that are amazing law enforcement officers because they're not bad, you know. But it's the same thing like when you're teaching your kids, you know, like if I've had a situation where there was some language that was really insensitive and inappropriate being used, and my kids at a certain age didn't understand because all their friends were doing it, you know, I try to put in perspective, hey, you know, this person in our lives, yeah, I love that person. Okay, well, think about what that would do if you said that to them, or think about how that phrase or that language would affect them.
Absolutely.
We got to try to find personal connections with this type of stuff because.
Well, listen, how many people talk or post before they think about what they do?
Well, there's no doubt about that.
There's got to be a string there between.
I do think. Go ahead. No, I'm going to wrap it up.
No, I apologize. I just realized that I left this off. What I was going to get to with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, I think an interesting change of perspective, or to put it in perspective for some people, is when we talk about disability rights. If somebody came up and said, hey, you know what, we need non-disability rights month, we think they're ridiculous. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, like someone says, you know what, what's all this cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness, you know, like what about this? You know, what about strep throat awareness?
Yeah, we need a testicular cancer awareness month.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? So it's not saying that other things aren't important. It's trying to bring awareness to something that needs the help. It needs bringing awareness to something that needs that attention because it is kind of being overlooked. And so it's not, there's all these other examples in society, in our lives, where there is a special cause that's being highlighted. Right. And nobody ever questions it.
No, right.
So the same is right for Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not saying that that's the only life that matters at all. It's saying, hey, no, Black lives do matter, and there's a lot of bad things happening to people who are black.
It's shedding light where light hasn't been shed appropriately.
Yeah. So again, it's not an either or proposition.
Well, so when the original Black Lives Matter thing happened as well, I fell into the trap too, because it came off so blatant. From a standpoint of just in your face, like everything was just in your face. And I was like, whoa. Like, so now I don't matter. Right? Because, I mean, if you're watching the video, I'm not a black man. Right? And so at that point in time, I took it personally, but it was never intended to be taken personally or to be a personal shot at anybody, which is what, in a way, you said you got to find a personal connection. You also got to take the personal reaction out of it, right? And so you got to make it to where it's not. This is not about me. This is not about you. This is not about anyone in particular. It's about awareness of that cause or the situation being shedding light and making people aware of a situation.
Well, our experience shapes our perception of the world we live in.
No doubt about that.
So the only way for us to expand and grow how we see the world is to learn through other people's experiences. And so that's what I'm saying. You know, you gotta take the time to listen to people because the world's bigger.
And that's what I hope that is happening now or starting to happen. I hope it is, because ultimately that's what we need. We need us three here. We need to communicate with Black, white, Asian, Mexican, whatever. Like, we have to have that communication to see that side. And I'm afraid that the riots, that's what we needed. I'm afraid to say that, like, it had to go that far in order to get our attention, because while Colin Kaepernick got our attention, all it did was make the white community, like, question, like, why would he do this to the flag? When now the understanding is that it's not about the flag.
No.
It's about the injustice that's being done to them.
Awareness.
And so I really hope that this is opening a line of communication between all parties, and that would be the best thing that could happen would be that. But last couple things about you got something to cap it off?
Well, I was just going to say this, keep it in mind with the protesting with Kaepernick. You know, there's a lot of people that have opposed it that consider themselves to be true patriots. And, you know, something we've had talks in my household about is that there could be a time, you know, that I don't feel like the people that are behind the government, behind that flag, represent what's best for me and my family. And I might, you know, there could be a time in my life where I might want to protest that. So keeping that perspective, you know.
Well, you said that's probably the most American thing he could have done.
It is. It is. And
based
a veteran.
on the Constitution and everything.
A veteran actually gave him the idea of doing it as a sign of respect. And so my thing is a civil protest, freedom of speech. Those are our God-given rights. We're instructed to do it. Say what you want to say about the time in which our founding fathers formed our country with all of its imperfections, but they were wise enough to know that these type of things were going to happen, and they wanted to give us the tools to make sure that we could hold the government accountable.
Well, they felt like they weren't heard, right? Like, that's why they came to the United States, right? I
mean, that's why they separated from Britain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think they also realized the flaw of man.
Yeah.
So you needed to have something that was not forever.
Yeah, this nation was founded on civil discourse, basically.
Yeah, our state.
Yeah, everything.
Right. So, man, I loved this conversation with you guys. These guys are the Average Joes. They've got their own podcast called Things You Think You Don't Care About.
There you go.
And it's weekly, right? Or seasonally?
Seasonally, yeah.
Seasonally.
Season 4.
We're trying to get weekly every now and then. It's a couple times a week.
Sure. Streamed live on Facebook, and obviously throughout any other platform that you get podcasts,
social media,
Spotify, iTunes, all podcasts, everything.
Thanks to Trey Scott, we're now on MySpace.
Yep.
Okay.
We got the
MySpace.
He said a challenge to start a movement.
I think I saw y'all post something about being back on MySpace and trying to bring MySpace back. Yeah. Wouldn't that be a rise from the ashes story?
It would be.
My goodness.
You see the Gingrich group on MySpace now.
Maybe so. I mean, I'm pretty sure that my personal MySpace is still out there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure mine is too, but I don't remember the email.
I need to go look at that. Anyways, Jobu, Joey, awesome guys, and I appreciate y'all coming out.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us, brother. We wish you the best. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. We'll do it again.